Hey Bible readers, I'm Tara Lee Cobble and I'm your host for the Bible Recap. Today we start the book of 2 Chronicles, and just like we talked about with 1 Chronicles, this account will usually have less detail and sometimes different detail than the stories we're reading in the accounts of 1 and 2 Kings. Those books are like the docuseries, and Chronicles is kind of like the news report. Chronicles almost certainly started out as one book that had to be divided in half because of its length. It wouldn't easily fit onto one scroll. Today, the news report is recounting Solomon making sacrifices before God. Then God asks him what he wants, and he makes a request for wisdom. We saw this in the docuseries yesterday, except with a few additional details. Today, I noticed that God praised Solomon for not asking for the lives of his enemies. This felt like a bit of a callback to his father David, who asked for his enemies' lives on his deathbed. At the end of 2 Chronicles 1, we see it emphasized again that despite his newly granted wisdom, Solomon starts hoarding wealth and horses against God's commands in Deuteronomy 17. Then we moved on to Psalm 72. First of all, is this psalm written by Solomon, like it says at the start, or by David, like it says at the end? That's super confusing, right? So here's the case for each option. If it's by Solomon, then the first line that says of Solomon is telling us the author's name, and the last line that says the prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are ended, is prophesying David's death. But if it's by David, then the first line that says of Solomon is telling us it's about Solomon, not by him, and the last line that says the prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are ended, is giving us David's final sign-off before he dies. No one really knows, and absolutely zero about my faith hinges on it, so I'm not sweating it too much. Here's what we do know about this psalm. It's about the blessing on the king, and probably Solomon specifically, regardless of who wrote it. God has big plans for this king. This is a prayer for a righteous king. But it's not praise for the king, it's asking God to grant all these good things to the king. A heart for righteousness, a hand for justice, an eye to see the poor and needy. Scripture attributes these things to God and asks God to give them to the king. These positions of the heart and mind are granted by God. The psalmist, who was likely a king himself at some point, also knows how much the king needs prayer. In verse 15, the psalmist is asking for round-the-clock prayers for the king. Do you see how humble this viewpoint is? If he had exalted the king to God-sized status, the king wouldn't need prayer. He would be elevated above the position of human neediness. But because the psalmist realizes all good things are given from Yahweh's hand, he knows the king needs God's help and asks the people to intercede on his behalf. He ends with a blessing on God himself and says that God alone does wondrous things. There are so many things we need, and there's no one we can take those needs to except for God. So many people are afraid to ask God for things, afraid they're bothering him. But God says to pray without ceasing. He wants us to keep talking to him, to keep asking for things, in part because it helps us recognize that he's the source of all things. And it also helps us realize how desperately needy we are. And that ties right into my God shot for today. Even when people aren't asking him for anything, do you see how much God wants to display his heart of generosity? Solomon wasn't even asking him for anything, and God shows up and says, "Psst, hey Solomon, you want anything?" Then on top of that, God decides to triple the blessing, not just giving Solomon what he asks for, but giving him things he didn't ask for too. God is marked by this kind of abundant generosity. He owns everything, and he loves to bless his kids. He seeks out opportunities to bless them, even when they don't ask for it. His heart is so kind. I can't get over it. He's where the joy is. Do you know about the RECAPtains? Let me fill you in. It's a platform that offers us a way to provide you with more content that benefits everyone. It helps content creators like us offer additional resources that benefit you, while you help us keep the lights on. So when you create a RECAPtains account, you get more of our content that goes along with our reading plan, and we want to provide you with that. We want to provide you with such great content for free that you might in turn consider supporting us financially so that you get more of the content that you love. When you choose your support tier as a RECAPtain, you get to pick and choose what you get in return for that support. It's super easy to create an account, and you can unsubscribe or change your support tier at any time. To find out more about the bonus content we have ready and waiting for you, visit thebiblerecap.com and click the RECAPtains link.